call the March Vermillion County Council meeting to order, please. If you'll please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's been a while. I had to study it.
You're on. All right. Thank you, everyone. Next we'll roll call. Mr. Costello.
Here.
Mr. Weir.
Here.
Mr. Somerville.
Here.
Mr. Bush. He should be here. He's running late from a fire. Mrs. James, I'm here. Mr. Dreer.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
All right. First, we have approval of minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the February meeting minutes? Nope. All right. If there's no additions or corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve them.
Motion made.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Weir, a second by Mr. Brown. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, the minutes are approved. Next, we have the treasurer's report and also the Trust Indiana report. And we also have received a financial report by fund from the auditor's office. Are there any questions or concerns on anything? All right, please note that we have received all of those items. Next, we have the comp time report. Anita has marked in the column if it has gone up or down. If there was no change, there is nothing listed in the far right column. Any comments or concerns? All right. Moving along. We have a couple transfers of funds. Our first transfer is from Economic Development. They are asking to transfer $150 for uniforms to office cleaning. They had requested that this be encumbered into account 21900 when it actually should have been encumbered to 32900, so they're just needing to transfer it over to change the account number.
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Costello, a second by Mr. Dreer to approve the transfer of $150 for economic development. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, motion's approved. Our next transfer of funds is for the circuit court. They're asking to transfer $3,000 from the SIM director to supplies.
This is not tax dollars, this is grant money, isn't it?
Yes, it's in the opioid
Yeah.
grant money.
Motion to allow.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Dreer, second by Mr. Brown to allow the transfer of $3,000. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Okay. The motion's approved. All right, and our last transfer this evening is for the highway department in the highway capital improvement account. They are asking to transfer $213,000. It was put into the bituminous line item when in fact it should have been broken out into the 3 districts at budget time. So they're just asking to split that number back out into those 3 separate accounts.
Motion to allow.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Dreer, a second by Mr. Brown to allow the transfer from the bituminous account. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, signify by saying no. Motion's approved. Next, we have several additional appropriations. Our first one is for the Vermillion County Health Department. They are requesting $8,000 for their equipment account. This is to purchase 6 new computers, iPads, and 1 printer for the COVID-19 vaccine site. The funds will be taken out of the Health Department cash balance. This is not a general fund account. This is their own account. Wendy is here if anyone has questions for Wendy.
Wendy, are you buying those computers through the company that we've hired here out the courthouse?
Yeah, EAS sat down with us and we talked about what we needed, and they ordered them for us.
Okay.
So, yep.
Thank you.
Well, it was pretty smooth the other day when I got mine, so whatever it takes to keep it moving along and vaccinate as many as possible, so I'll make the motion that we
Okay.
allow this.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Weir, a second by Mr. Dreer to allow the $8,000 for the Health Department. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. All right, the appropriation's approved. And the Health Department has another additional appropriation. This is to set up their grant period that ends in June 30th, 2021. This is for their grant for operation.
That's for emergent, are you talking about 35?
Yes, it's the 35,570.
That's our preparedness grant. That's set up June to June, so we always have to ask for appropriation. This is all money that we get reimbursed for. We'll come back in June and ask again.
Yeah.
But we've already been approved for this money for this year.
Yeah, her calendar year runs different than the county year, so this is why.
And a lot of these funds have helped out as well with the vaccines and the testing as well. Bought some materials and stuff with that out of her grant that we can use. If you've been up to KU, that all of that is out of this money. The setup that we'll be doing our mass vaccination clinic.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Weir and a second by Mr. Brown to establish the additional appropriations for the Health Department for their grant. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Appropriations approved. And we have one more additional for the Vermillion County Health Department. This is to set up their budget line items for the community COVID-19 testing grant. This is for the grant period between September 2020 to June 30th, 2021. So
We have to leave that open 35 hours a week, so we have to have staff there that whole time. Just because
That was part of the-
numbers could go up and the cases could go up and down, so.
And that was partly because the state mandated it for the grant money too, right? Yeah.
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Weir, a second by Mr. Dreer for the COVID-19 grant budget line items. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, appropriations approved.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Wendy. All right, our next additional appropriation is from the commissioners. It's for the material bridge, for their bridge repair on 1450 North. I believe RJ's here.
So you guys will see a number in front of you. Actually, what is the number again?
155.
155. After consulting with Melissa at the Highway Department, originally we had talked about 128, 130 was the number. And I think Melissa thought that it would be much better if we could get to 155 just because we use culverts. We do a lot out of that account, so if the council applies, we'd like to get to 155.
And Mr. Donovan's brought us the information in the past months explaining it. So, is there any further questions for RJ?
You're saying this is gonna be in addition to the work done on bridge at 1450 North?
The
So like
1450.
purchasing culvert pipe materials?
Well, we're just saying that the account, they use culvert repair out of that account, so if we would've got the 130, we would've been, 20,000 shorter, that they use in District 1, District 2, several districts. Like I said, once we bid that bridge out, I'll have a better idea of how much the cost is gonna be, but right now, I don't have that number.
How much is right now, RJ?
For what, the bidding? They quoted an estimate around 120, 130, but that was just a rough estimate
Right.
from, Walt Wilson.
That's the older gentleman that was at your meetings?
Yeah, he's up
Yeah.
with, I think it's E3 Bridge. Usually he's pretty good on getting those numbers, but he
Yeah.
won't give you a contractor's name because nobody wants to, put their name out with their bids, so
Right.
he assumed that was a little bit high,
Okay.
that we might be able to get it done for less.
That's gonna bid, that's public bid? Yeah.
And I think he called me the other day and said the bridge is expected to be done mid-April, I think. That's supposed to be done.
They started on
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
nobody's-
they build the bridges.
it? Oh, you're talking about the
Sorry.
prefab, the
Yeah,
prefab,
yeah, yeah.
okay, yeah, I was gonna
Oh,
say, I
no,
don't think
no,
you have it
no, yeah,
installed
no.
by mid-April, but,
No, not installed.
yeah, so they ship it in modules, yeah, okay, okay.
I think that's something we've all known about, and it's been an
Yeah.
ongoing deal that's been needed to take care of for a couple of years now, but we finally got
Yeah,
to it.
yep.
So I make a motion to go ahead and accept that.
I'll second the motion, Randy.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Dreer, second by Mr. Costello, to allow the $155,416 for bridge repair on 1450 North. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The appropriations approved.
Who's that account number again?
Which one?
That one he changed on. Did he just change the?
No, it's just for 1450 North.
Oh, okay.
All right, the next is, from the commissioners also. It is the jail projects for the 40,000. We've already voted on this one, however, we did miss the newspaper deadline by 1 day. It was published on January 2nd, 2021, and it should have been January 1st, 2021. So, the Department of Local Government Finance is asking that we re-advertise it and reapprove it. So we approved it once, however, the state's asking us to reapprove it so that it was advertised with the full 10 days.
Regards to that bridge, excuse me, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I'd ask a question about this, and I emailed you, Annie about it, because you guys did the 40,
Mhm.
and then we came back last month and did the 678, which I thought that was all the engineering. I may be wrong.
Did we get an answer on that from the commissioners?
All that was left other than the 40, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't,
Because at that time, they were assuming they already had the 40.
okay, all right, that was my, all right.
It was an actual bill that we'd already paid it.
Okay.
Well, that's, yeah, but you got 678, so you're
Yeah.
fine, it's just, but
Right.
you need another 40 then to finish off the total bill, okay. I just was confused by that because I knew you did the 678 last month. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
This doesn't have anything to do with the highway department, does it?
No,
No, this-
that department should not say highway.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's the Cume Jail
For plans
Fund.
and stuff, wasn't it?
This is the one that's coming out of the money that we've set back aside for the jail, out of the certified chair money and public safety money.
And you asked that because of this up here?
Yes. I think
Is
Commissioners
this
Highway.
also that jail, 22 point,
Highway
whatever it
Department.
was?
Yes, that was
Slash
in the.
should've been opposite when they do a
Mhm.
highway.
It was in the estimated budget items that basically that are gonna have to be paid for before the bonds can be issued.
And that was the money you guys gave them while I was going to pay bills or something
Question,
coming
I
in?
already knew the
Yeah,
answer.
okay.
Yeah.
To talk about Brent's request a meeting or so ago, is that Tim's signature? Is that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too familiar with his
Mhm.
signatures, okay.
That is Tim's.
Most signatures I can read, but
That don't even look like a T, does it?
upside down.
Yeah.
Really?
Or his name upside down.
Okay.
RJ, get with him on
Yeah, I'll add that to the
Thank
to-do
you.
list.
Thanks, RJ.
Priority.
All right. Do I have a motion to reapprove this appropriation?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Somerville and a second by Mr. Brown to reapprove the additional appropriation for $40,000 out of the Q jail account. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Appropriations approved. Okay, the next additional appropriation. It is for the highway department. During the budgeting process, we kind of expected this to happen, but the state complicated it even further when they have the money in their highway account, but due to the fact that they hadn't spent that money, we had to like kind of reduce their budget, and then once they did spend it, we put it back into their budget. Part of that is listed in these different accounts where it needs to go. The other fact is that they consider it one fund and we consider it two funds. And so the state then again hacked some of the accounts and changed things around. So this is to realign the budget and the accounts of where the highway department actually needs the money put back.
This is, put it right back to what the council approved in November.
Yes.
Which is less than what they wanted. But we'll put it back to what you approved in November or October, whenever, I guess it was in October.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, so our accounts here are different than this. The accounts are the same, but we just have them,
So
we have them listed somehow differently.
we have them kind of split out a little bit more than the state does, of
Okay.
which fund is
More
funding that.
sub-accounts.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the fund is where the actual money from the state gets put in, and then we distribute it amongst these other accounts. So the state just has them differently than we do, so they rearranged them for us.
Is that the situation where we're required to spend 50%
Yes.
of the
Yeah, we have
money
to keep-
on
we
certain
have to keep-
projects?
That's exactly, yeah, we have to have this in highway restricted fund.
And
So
unrestricted.
half the money that comes into that fund, and half not half, but a big chunk of the appropriations are out of that fund too. But that's State Board of Accounts thing, DLGF, which is, they're different. DLGF treats them as one fund for budgeting purposes, so they were not counting the money that we had. When they came to look at our budget, they said, well, you don't have enough money to fund your highway budget, but they won't look at this money that we have over here.
Right.
So, the NVH distributions are down this year from where they've been previously. They're not down, they didn't, at least in the first couple months, they weren't down by quite as much as they predicted, but they are still down. So a reduction from what the commissioners requested is probably still wise. The amount that's requested here would simply restore it back to what was approved.
Mhm.
If they spend every dollar, they can do it. It will start to deplete the cash balance in that fund though. Now maybe we'll get more money next year from highway and it'll be a little bit better, but.
Yeah, so they have the money right now to spend it, where if they don't spend it, they'll have that additional money the next year to put back, you know, in case they need it. Whereas if they spend it all, then you're just whittling into your savings account.
So this money comes from,
Gas tax.
I was gonna say gas tax
And excise.
and excise.
We could get something. This would just restore it back to what you had intended originally, and you know, it's not out of line with what you can afford. It's just a little tighter than I think what commissioners would like. But,
It's a little tighter than what I like.
yeah, that's she about had a heart attack when we met because it was cut drastically.
Well, the one account should have had like 150, I think it had like, what, 5,000? Like the state just totally just.
Well, the state just tells you.
Yeah.
450 cut it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, so,
So that's why we kinda have to.
In years past, it has been sent straight to the state cuts it, and it comes back, and I cut it where I see it needs to be cut. And this year.
The state did it.
It was cut by you guys first, and then the state turned around and cut it again. So, and some of the areas that was cut, I would not cut.
Right.
Truck repair and
Leasing.
equipment repair. Those two items was cut. I would not have cut those two, even though we might not have used them last year as much.
Right.
The last year was an exceptional year for
And I think
everything.
when we did it, we cut any increases from everything. That's where we started. And then the state, I think, had really messed with it.
the state doesn't tell you where to cut, they
Right.
just say, you
Yeah.
gotta cut 450. And we did not know for sure how it came up with where to cut things from. It may just
But
have been.
this puts it back to where they need, the
This-
highway part.
This restores the line items to exactly where the council approved them in October. They were reduced from what the commissioners wanted again, but this is what the council approved.
I would make a motion to approve it.
Second that.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Costello, a second by Mr. Dreer for the highway to fix their budget numbers with the additional appropriation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Appropriations approved. All right, next on the additional appropriation is from the Sheriff's Department. They are asking to move $1,000 back into the Sheriff's other garage repair, line item 21800. They had to pay a deductible out of their budgeted line item from an accident back in September of 2020, and they finally received the reimbursement check to cover that cost. So they received the check. Mike sent us the copy of the check, came back. So he would just like to put the money back into his other garage repair account.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Costello, a second by Mr. Brown, to allow the $1,000 into the other garage repair. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion's approved.
I think the sheriff said he had paid that in advance to speed things up.
Yeah.
That all our insurance company could go after the other one, so
Yeah.
there was never any question about it, so.
All right, the next additional appropriation is in regards to the bond project payments. The HB White Investments bond project, it is the bond interest for the entire year, $86,050. This is the allocation, coming from the allocation fund. It is the payments that the HB White's pays into it, and then we turn around and pay the bond interest out of their payments that they make. So this is not the county money per se, it is money that the business has put in there. We take that money and then we pay them.
It's their tip money. It's
Yeah.
Property tax dollars they're paid by.
Yeah, it's through their tip.
It was used 10 years ago, 9 years ago to fund the water and sewer line extensions to their new building and new headquarters. So they essentially loaned the county the money to build that, and then we agreed to pay them back via these payments, which are made twice a year. So this amount is the full year's payment. It won't be paid all at once.
February and August.
February and August are the payment dates.
Make a motion. Second.
In White Investments is, where are they located from, or at?
It's their main building, right off of 63.
Okay, so this is.
Outside city limits of Clinton.
Okay,
That's where the TIF district's at.
okay.
I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Somerville, to allow the bond project payment allocation, or additional appropriation. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion's approved. We do have a couple additional appropriations from the surveyor. However, he has a gentleman that would like to come speak with us before we do that. So I'm going to move those to the end of the meeting to allow for his guests to get here. So we'll carry on and we'll come back to that at the very end. We do have a couple items on the amended salary ordinance. There were 2 in your packet, and there are an additional 2 more. The first one is for the public health nurse. This is for the rate of $30 per hour that we approved at a previous meeting. Now we just need to approve the amended salary ordinance. I guess Anita, do you want to go ahead and describe all 4, and then we can vote on them separately if that's okay? Anita's good. She's got all 4 of them to kind of explain what the salary ordinance, what she needs us to do.
Okay, like Ashley said, the health department, you guys have voted on that last month to move that to $30 an hour for her, and we just need the amended salary ordinance just to approve that so I can bump her pay up. The next one is on the cook. During the council meetings, the budget meetings last year, they had an assistant cook line that was never used, so they asked for that to be moved up to the cook's salary. So that was approved. Unfortunately, I didn't know, so I have not been paying her that. I just found out, so that's why I'm asking for that to be changed. It is on the location budget, but it was not entered on the actual salary ordinance. The next one up is we just elected 2 people appointed them to solid waste controller and solid waste administrator. So those both positions are located in the auditor's location budget, and they have been approved for $2,000 worth of pay on both of those. So I just need to add those to the 2 people that have been appointed to those positions.
Who's appointed that? I've been gone. Who's appointed that?
On solid waste. So the administrator is Penny Carpenter, and then the controller is
Mandy Wan.
Mandy Wan,
Okay,
out of
thank
the
you.
auditor's office.
Mhm.
You was part-time, wasn't you?
What's that?
You was on there part-time, wasn't you? And they got rid of you, they put Penny back?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was Phyllis and,
I got put on that board, yes, but not. No, Penny took that, so thankfully. All right. So the first one that we need to approve then is the public health nurse.
Yeah.
I'll need a motion and a second for each one, please.
I remember doing that. I make a motion to allow that.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Dreer and a second by Mr. Weir for the public health nurse to amend the salary ordinance. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying no. All right, that one is approved. All right, next we have the cook at the jail.
Motion to allow.
Do I have that one?
Yeah, it was the second one listed, I thought. Oh, right there.
Oh, okay. I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I have a motion by Mr. Bush. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Bush, second by Mr. Somerville, to amend the salary ordinance for the cook at the jail. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. That one is approved. All right, and the next, you don't have the copies in the packet, but if you'd like to see them, they're right here. This is coming straight from the budget. It's just assigning it to the salary ordinance. The first one is for the solid waste controller for the $2,000 for the year.
How much, 2?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Alright, I have a motion by Mr. Weir, a second by Mr. Somerville for the solid waste controller amended salary ordinance. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, and the last one is the solid waste administrator for $2,000 for the year. And it's paid bi-weekly.
Make motion.
Second?
I have a motion by Mr. Somerville, a second by Mr. Weir for the solid waste administrator amended salary ordinance. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ordinance is approved. Thanks, Anita.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business. We have a certificate of appointment for the Public Library Board. In your packet, you have a letter from the Clinton Public Library. Unfortunately, Mr. Weber has passed away, and they are needing to reappoint someone as his replacement. They have asked that we appoint Shelley Emmerman as his replacement. He would continue to serve on as in Mr. Weber's term, which will end December 31st, 2024. Approved. Or she will, sorry, Shelley will.
You say 2024?
Yes.
Oh, right. Do we have a motion on that?
Yes, we'll need to, yes, we'll have a motion and a.
Yeah, I've known Shelley for some time, and she's been an asset to our community, so I have no problem with that. With one. So if we make a motion to appoint her.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Dreer and a second by Mr. Bush to appoint Shelley Emmerman to replace Mr. Weber on the Clinton Public Library Board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The appointment is approved. Okay. We do have one additional appointment, it's for the Economic Development Council. We had asked for applications, they have a vacant seat for for someone who works in one of the top 10 businesses, top 10 largest businesses in Vermilion County. We did receive 3. We have Nick Kilgore, who lives in Cayuga, Indiana, and he currently works for International Paper. George Schmaltz, who lives in Rockville, Indiana. He is the plant manager for Perma-Based Building Products, formerly National Gypsum in Clinton. And we have Albert Mays, who lives in Hillsdale and works for Great Dane Trailers in Brazil.
George, I really don't know him, but I think we've got a little bit of an issue there. We had, Mr. Ellis was appointed a couple boards, and then they removed him because he didn't have residency in Vermilion County. So I don't see where we'd have a double standard if we, and open up a can of worms, we put him on.
Yeah, that won't
He's been
work.
from Rockville, you know.
Yeah.
Pardon.
That won't work.
So I think he's gotta be scratched out now. I don't know how the rest of my colleagues here feel, but that's how I feel about it.
And Albert Mays also does work part-time at Swinford Farms, it says.
What's that,
Albert works part-time at Swinford Farms. I left that one out on that one. He works full-time at Great Dane and then part-time at Swinford. So, again, this is the appointment for the top 10 employers in Vermilion County.
So that's what we'd be voting on. The one I see here would be this Kilgore. Since he works up at the paper, I mean, that'd be one of our top 10 employment agencies, I think, here in the county.
Yes, International Paper is one of the top 10.
Yeah, international.
Do I have a motion for an applicant?
I'll make a motion we appoint Nick Kilgore to the board.
I'll second it.
And that's for a 2-year, 4-year,
3.
3-year.
Yeah.
And the requirements to hold that position, is there, are there any? Pardon?
One of the 10 largest employers in
And that's the only requirement?
Live in the county.
Yeah.
RJ, you know him?
Do what?
You know him?
Nick?
Yes.
Yes,
Oops.
I do.
You sponsored him?
Well, if they put you down as a reference, yes, I would recommend them.
Yes, you were listed as a reference.
You
I remember reading some of those, but I mean, I've read quite a few references.
I think at one time he was one of our reserves, wasn't he?
I think so, I'm not
I
sure that
think
he
so.
is anymore.
Yeah, he
but-
was.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Dreer and a second by Mr. Bush to appoint Nick Kilgore onto the Vermillion County Economic Development Council. Is there any further discussion?
And the motion was made and second by whom?
Mr. Bush. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, Nick is approved. Continuing our discussion from last Thursday onto economic development. There were a few things that we needed to address this evening. Scott has drafted us, is it a resolution or an ordinance?
It is a resolution.
A resolution to allow kind of a, if the economic director is not here, who is basically in charge of being able to function the office when they're not here. We didn't have anything in writing that said who could continue with the day-to-day operations. You know, typically in the elected office, if your elected official is not here, it is the first deputy. So in consistency with that, it would be Lynn, because she is the next under, which the director, which would have been Dylan. So we have that. The other item that we said we would discuss tonight was the hiring of the new economic development director. As stated last Thursday, it is been kind of up in the air of who should be in charge of hiring that person. In previous years, it was stated that the Economic Development Council has approved the director and hired them. There's that option. I guess we have a couple choices. Do we want to leave it that way? They've hired the past ones, from my understanding. We created the Economic Development Council, so do we feel that's adequate still to this time? Are there any questions or concerns with how the process goes? I mean, everyone.
Did the Economic Development Council before, did they bounce that off the rest of the members after they finally narrowed it down to 1 or 2 or whatever the...
Yeah, I believe they have a committee set up that narrows it down, and then they take it to their whole
Yeah.
council, and the council votes on it as a whole.
So that everybody gets to vote on it.
That was my understanding.
But it would just be a committee, the hiring committee that would look actually at the application, do the interviews, you know, and then come back to, you know, who we thought would be a good fit, would come through the council first, and then it would be given here at the council for approval.
Well, we've approved our director within the Economic Development Council. We've hired our directors, the salary is set.
Mm-hmm.
by the county council, but my recollection is we have hired our own director. You guys set the salary.
And there are other boards that do hire their own directors. It was an area planning hires, which one did you tell me, Scott? There was redevelopment came.
Reuse does, definitely.
Reuse, that was it, I'm sorry.
Um,
Reuse does, and then
redevelopment could
redevelopment,
if
if they had a director, their actual board would set that one too. So it's not necessarily, their state statute says they have the ability to do that. As economic development, that does not say they do, and it does not say they don't. So that's our gray area of, there's nothing in writing that says they do or don't.
So to continue on the path that we were going on, and he's right, and the council up there vote, those people, when we set the salary, can't we just change that wording in that, so everybody votes and?
Well, we determined that since the document we have says they state the budget, that inherently allows them to spend the budget and vote on how to spend it. So without it specifically saying they have the ability to vote to do it, it kind of inadvertently gives them that right since they have the ability to create it. Or, right? Is that how we?
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, I talked to Lynn about this today because I think I was a little confused about it. The county commissioners approve all their claims. So realistically, it's just like any other department. You set a budget and, you know, the sheriff goes out and spends his budget. The claims come back to the commissioners for approval. But they would not have, I don't know that they really spend money in the same way that I would, you know, I think ultimately they have a budget of, they have a budget this year, $450,000 or something, and it's line items, and you know, I don't know that it's really, I don't think there's ever been any issues with getting those claims approved by the commissioners. So now I think the council plays a role in helping formulate that budget and decide how much should be set aside for this, that, and the other. But so I mean, we can address that if you I got it sitting right here if you want to address that. But ultimately, I don't know that it definitely needs to be addressed because it seems to me it's functioning okay. That's not an issue. Who has the authority to? And if the director feels like I don't know if I wanted, I don't know, these pencils are really expensive. I don't know if I should get this one or that one, and he wants to go to somebody else and get their opinion on it. I guess he can do that. Now, my understanding is that the council actually does see everything. They get reports, Randy, you may know, that shows here's what we spent this month, and but they don't actually. It's ultimately the check is not cut until the commissioners approve it. The county commissioners approve it.
They get that on the Friday board, yep.
Yeah.
The
So,
commissioners get it first.
I don't know if that helps or that's how it works. So I don't know that I don't think that doesn't seem to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's.
I think the only issue we had is that it wasn't in writing that allowed things to move on without the director. So that we were just covering with the state in case somebody else signed something. That was the main issue on that. As far as day-to-day processes go, that way if the state ever came back, we have a document that says, yes, she signs it when
yeah,
the director's not
the
here.
the claim warrants themselves have a spot for somebody to sign. Usually it's a department head or deputy or something that says, you know, yeah, we got those pencils here. That's a true and accurate statement or invoice, and I approve that invoice. So it's literally that little function that needs to be done. Plus, you got to have somebody's got to, you know, we're out of pencils. We need new pencils. Who can order pencils?
The other concern that was brought up in the short term was the ability to hire the new director. We do have applicants that are waiting to be interviewed, so they would like some formal recommendation of how to move forward. So whether we allow the council to move forward, we make a different recommendation, whether it be us or the commissioners or who be it. Is there any recommendations for economic development in order to proceed for the new director?
I see some smart people sitting back there, and I think they can handle it. They're gonna be working with them.
And is there a representative off of this council?
Randy.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay. So we can formally put it in. Can I have a motion and a second to allow Economic Development Council to proceed with the hiring of director.
I'll make a motion.
I'll say that.
And Lynn is very good with the bills. She's very good with
Can you buy pencils, Lynn?
Not yet. Can you get automatic?
But you're very diligent. You're not just spending.
Don't
You're
buy the
very good with that.
expensive.
I agree.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Somerville and a second by Mr. Bush to allow Economic Development Council to proceed with the hiring of a new Economic Development Director. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion's approved.
Actually, if I could ask one question to Roxanne real quick on that subject a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
For the hiring of the new director, that won't strictly just be the committee, that'll be the full economic council,
Right,
correct?
we're just kind of doing
Yeah.
the committee, you know, pre-interviews,
Okay.
telephone interviews.
So how many applicants was there for the? Four, so the full 4 applicants be brought before the whole council, or there'd just be one recommendation from the committee to the
I
council?
mean, I think once we, you know, we talk to them, make sure that they're, you know, qualified,
Yeah.
something that is going to work for us. And there's no sense in bringing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand that, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do have some very good qualified, applicants. So, you know, I would think, we would probably at least, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how,
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
once we get talking to them, we have not done any notifications.
Oh.
I did reach out Friday, just to make sure everybody was still available, and they are still available, so.
I think one from Texas or something. Then I think, I guess that,
We'll get along, can
you wanna make sure that you don't bring somebody, I mean, we may have to pay her, we don't have that figured out. They come from Texas, see, and a lot of times the company will fly you in to do something like that. Well, if they're not qualified or they're not satisfied, they don't know their salary
Right,
either.
right.
See, when we tell them the salary, they might go, well, I'm not coming there for that. See, so there's no, you know, it depends on their reaction
Right.
the interview, who will come, there may be one, there may be two, or all 4 of them that may come before the board. We don't, depends
So-
on what the reaction is.
So do you guys have a salary range?
You guys set the
You
salary.
guys have to-
We set the salary based upon their qualifications.
Yeah.
But is there a salary
The last
range
time-
already established?
The last time that we changed the salary, we had taken a economic development report that Dylan had given us. It was like 500 pages of statistics, basically. And we kind of took the pages that pertained similar to Vermilion County, whether it's public or private, how much is funded, how many years of experience, population size. So we kind of took those aspects and tried to come up with a best guesstimate of a salary. And so that's what we used there, whereas, you know, we did those numbers based on, part of that was years of experience. So if they look at somebody who has 20 or 30 years of experience, I'm sure there's a difference in pay range, so that may
Right.
be a question that comes back. Again, their budget is not, I mean, we approve their budget, but the actual funding of their budget doesn't come from us. It comes from the income tax. And so they get 12.5% of the 0.25, well, 0.125, whatever. So they have a set amount of money that comes in from the local income tax that they get to spend each year. So they can't go over that, but, so there again, a lot of times their budget comes in under and it goes into their cumulative, like, development account, I think. That,
Like capital.
yeah, like a capital expenditures where they just basically put that money back in savings account if they don't spend it.
So let me ask a question. If we would provide you a salary range, is that helpful?
It could be, I mean, we've got one that's got, like, there's a lot of, training you can do, and then you get this top, you know,
Right.
certificate. One of them has that. So I have no idea what it would take to get that particular person.
It seems like it'd be prudent if we would give you a range.
Do we have this covered in the salary?
They
study?
are covered in the salary. Unfortunately, we don't have that study back yet. But that might be something that maybe that person doesn't even want to come here, you know, like if they're asking for 150,000, they're probably way out of our range, you know, where that's an automatic, sorry.
What is it currently, 56, 58?
58.
58.
Mhm.
I mean, would it be prudent when they interview them, you know, if they say, hey, I could come for 65, 70, you know, them not to say, hey, we can't do that. You know, maybe something in that range. I mean, I think Rick's on the right track. Kind of say, give them a range, that way they don't shoot someone in the foot and say, hey, we don't know.
I'm just basing my experience off
Yeah,
of.
well, because you know,
That's
that's
my
probably gonna come up
experience.
with somebody
Right.
that's qualified, they may say, you know, the bottom I can do 75,000.
Right.
70.
And that might be a
Whatever.
question for the interview is, you know, what they're willing to leave their current job for, you know, and are we willing to match that?
Yeah. Before they interview and then have to call, you know, for the members and say, hey, before we offer this, what are we working with?
Because I think a lot of it might depend on that experience factor. You know, you get somebody in there that doesn't need training, that can start from day one. I mean, there is a benefit to having someone that can just start.
The quality of candidate too. You know, because, you know, Dylan has, you know, in this position, has really made some traction. I hate to have to start with someone very brand new, that's not been in any kind of economic development position.
Right.
Making that.
Yeah, I mean, this is my personal opinion. I think we made strides over the years, but we want to keep moving forward and not 2 steps backwards right now. So, I mean, you want a very qualified candidate, may not be the best candidate, you know, applicant, but, I mean, that's just my thoughts. And you gotta get somebody that's gonna be, that wants to work as a team and not individually and all the other criteria.
That report that we use for Dylan, obviously it's outdated by now. Is that something that we can get our hands on again, that would show?
Do you know what it was, when you say 500 pages, I'm not
Ah,
familiar.
yeah, it was a long one. I'll get with
Let me
you.
look at my computer, because I did see something, just going to purifying files, that had like different, comparable.
It was a
people
massive
who were in the
PDF
area, like
file,
Greencastle and stuff like that, that had like 4 or 5 different people on it, but I.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it.
Okay.
I know Dylan has discussed it with me about because we were a little lower than a lot. You know.
And I think even when we did Dylan's, he was still below the average range.
But he was still in a learning.
But for, yes, and like I said, it's been several years ago. So we kind of gave below average, I think, in the, because it was it was pretty broad.
I mean, if you look what Dr. Reed's making compared to what Dylan's making.
Would it be something to say that, you know, when they interview these people or talk to them, that the salary's contingent on their experience, or, you know, don't
Yeah.
scare them off at the 58,000?
Well, and they're welcome to make a, you know, an offer, you know, and say, hey, I'm willing to come to Vermillion County for this, and we can always work back and forth with them and see if that's even a possibility based on, you know.
Well, even if you do little things such as, you know, pay their moving expenses or something like that. I mean, I don't know what you got to work with, so.
So just to be clear, I mean, we're authorized to pay at the offer up to what the salary ordinance for Dylan was.
Mhm.
But if we do more than that, which I'm fine, you know, I have no problem with that at all, I just wanna make clear. We come back to you guys and then you have to,
Yeah.
if there's anything over that, we come back to the
Right,
council, so.
your budget was set at the 58,000, and then anything above that will have to be, and like I said, it's not necessarily coming as an additional appropriation, it's more of a transfer out of their, you know, their development account. So, it's kind of they're not funded as other offices are. They're kind of unique in that aspect, but what makes it kind of difficult too.
And then they're also offering the county insurance that pays off, things like
Yeah.
that. That's another thing where you don't deal with the.
Yeah, and, I mean.
And that's a selling, I mean,
Yeah.
we have phenomenal benefits for the county, and that's a big selling right there.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that makes up for lower salary amounts. I feel like sometimes our benefits are better to where we can, you know,
Not everybody necessarily needs the benefits.
that's true.
That's right.
I have all
But
the-
if that's the case, then they save us even more by not being on the.
I have all the faith that's on the committee that we're gonna interview some people, but, you know, we'll talk about salaries, but I think they're gonna check their background, they're gonna check to make sure what kind of track record they had prior. I mean, we don't give someone $90,000 and they didn't do nothing before where he's leaving, you know, so. So I have faith in them, they'll come back to us, I'm sure, with a good number, and I hope a good person.
All right, any other discussion? No? All right, thank you, everyone. All right, the last thing is, yep, Ron Mack, surveyor, is here this evening.
We'll do the easy stuff first. You have 2 appropriation requests before you. First one is for office supplies. When I came into office, the budget was only $300, so 1 case of paper, the printer cartridge, and a couple printer cables, and that's gone. So I've asked to have that increase to $700 to get me through the rest of the year, and hopefully we can get better numbers on what it's really going to take to run the office after that.
You want us to go ahead and do that one first?
If you could, yeah. And I'll start on the other one, and if Jim gets done with these other meetings, maybe you can step in, poke his head in.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Who said that? I'm sorry.
Didn't see my lips.
I didn't. I was reading my pin guide. Yeah, couldn't read your lips, sorry. All right, I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Weir, for the additional appropriation of $700 for office supplies in the surveyor's office. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, that one's approved.
Okay, the second one is I'm asking for a line item to be added to my budget for professional services. This is needed because Vermilion County is in violation of both federal and state law at this point in time when it comes to cornerstone perpetuation. Here's a prime example of what I'm talking about. This came across my desk today from a survey, and if you can see here the reference monument points, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 monument uncertainties is what this guy calls them, and some of them are as far off as 50 feet.
Whoa.
So this guy's kind of guessing, said, well, historically this is where they say the boundary line is, so this is where we kind of go to, and we go from there. So our monument situation is in dire.
So you'll have to hire a licensed surveyor for that, is that right, Ron?
Yes, right, yes.
To locate.
Yeah, this is one that was just done, just came across my desk, and this is only for 4 acres. This particular plot of land is 4.31 acres that this guy surveyed.
How do they normally do those? Do they do them in like, what I want to call a section or whatever? Or?
Well, yes. The problem is we haven't had our cornerstone section monuments verified since the beginning of time, it appears. John Major, when he was doing it, he got a really good start at getting the groundwork done. And what I mean the groundwork, I brought these to show you. This is what John did, and this is a book of cornerstone records. The problem is, and I went through here and counted them, 95% of these have never been legally recorded or have a county seal on them or a surveyor seal on them. All they are is the legal descriptions that have come from this stuff here. And this dates back into the 1800s. Okay, so like a county road, and oh, there he is. He can help me explain this.
Carry on.
Jim Swift. For instance, the county road book. This is just one of them. The county roads, if Jim help me out here, are set up primarily on section lines. Okay. And so when the county road, when they first came in, the 1800s, they wanted a gravel road. So many people in a township had to sign a petition, and then the county went and put the county roads in along the section lines. But we have not verified those since that time, apparently, for the most part. The only ones we have any kind of certainty are correct are the ones that's when 63 went 4-lane. And they're just basing their records off that too, okay? So we need to go through all our documents, get them straightened up, organized, and this is where I'm asking for the professional services like Jim's to come in and go through this and clean all this information out. And the long-term plan is that once we find records of monuments that we know we are not going to excavate, like in the middle of Highway 63, and Jim is satisfied that as a licensed professional surveyor, that cornerstone is where they said it is, then he can sign off for it, and then I, as a surveyor, can sign off on it and officially record it for the county. Then, when the county surveyor, or when the surveyors go out, they have a solid cornerstone where they can begin their measurements from. Right now, I know of 2 situations, one's up north of Perrysville and one's down by Hillsdale, where the surveyors have had to go clear out to the county records, highway, or state highway records, and start their surveys. Well, when they do that, that adds extra hours of time that they have to put in, and then they charge their clients. So if you go back through our records, and I've got about 400 surveys in there that I counted since, well, probably since Majors was a surveyor, that have not had the cornerstones recorded correctly. So if they take, I had 2 surveyors in my office last week. One was there about 3 hours. One was there about 2 hours. If they charge them $200 an hour, times about 400 records in there in that book, that's about $80,000 that somebody's had to pay out of their pocket that they probably wouldn't have had to do, or so much of it, if our cornerstones were correct. So that's the reason why I'm asking for some professional services to get us down that road and going in the right direction. I think if we manage it correctly, and I've been over this plan 1,000 times with RJ and Tim and Britton, and I believe they're all in agreement that this is the way we need to go. The other thing too, I want to go back. We do have cornerstone markings on our GIS system, but they're taken from the original federal survey that was done in Vermilion County. Okay, so this is just one printout. One cornerstone here has 4 different descriptions done probably by 4 different surveyors, we may think. And that's based on where they started their survey. Did they start at the river and come west? Did they start at the state line and go east? Did they start at the treaty line and come south? Did they start at the 10 o'clock line and go north? We really don't know. So in our GIS system, we have about 1,000 records that really, when you comprise them and get them down, we have about 400 cornerstones. And if you double that to take the half-mile markers, then we're back up to 800 that need to be checked.
So
well,
Ron,
every hole you dig is going to be...
So the ones that, on this is the map.
Right.
So the ones that are not shaded, that are in white, those are good ones?
None of those have been verified, Rick.
Okay, none
of them.
Okay.
None of them.
So what's the shaded or
that's
dotted?
that's just the way it prints out there.
Okay.
I just wanted you to see how our sections go.
Okay.
We're in a very unique situation in that we have some sections that are triangles. We have some. The section is supposed to be 640 acres square, mile by mile. Well, we got a ton of them that are not, based on 1 of 3 Indian treaty lines, based on the correction line that Thomas Jefferson said we had to have, because you can't put a square on a globe, and based on the 10 o'clock line. It's just very, very complicated, and we need some expertise to at least get a program up and started and running. And that's the reason why I want to bring Jim in on this part of it. Now, I'm asking for professional services for $15,000. Maybe we'll spend that much, maybe we won't, but we feel like once Jim gets in, does his thing, gets things organized, then Jim can go away and his subordinates can come in. It won't cost us nearly so much money. Daughter-in-law works cheaper than Jim does. Yeah. So then they can gather those documents, and the ones that we can certify, we can verify, we can record as being legal, we can get those off our plate, and we're starting to get to be in compliance with the state and federal law. We have to, by law, do 5% a year. So if we can do that, then we're going down the road in the right direction. Now, in our treasury, we have about $120,000 for Cornerstone perpetuation. But every hole we go out and dig is going to cost us $1,000 at least. Yeah. So we get $5 for every recorded survey coming into the office.
Every recorded
document comes in, right. And last year we got in 12,000, so I conservatively grabbed a number at 10,000. If we get 10,000 in, and we only pull about 10,000 out of this 120,000. If we can keep that rolling, you know, and nothing changes, everything being equal, you know, I'm saying we can go clear down to, you know, 2040 without ever coming back to the council and ever asking for any more money for Cornerstone perpetuation. Now, that's pie in the sky, but that's a long-term plan, that's a long-term goal,
So
where we want to try to get to.
you're asking for the additional 15 just to get the ball rolling? and
Just to
then
get it going,
using the additional funds later in that account?
and then using that later. Then, as we get going and Jim gets busy, and it looks like the drainage issues are really gonna start picking up for us, aren't they, RJ? I'm gonna get real busy real quick.
Especially District 3.
Okay, then the money that I have in head chain man and surveyor helper and whatever that other one is, we'll come back and ask that to be combined in so I can have some clerical help to keep up with everything that's gonna be going on very quickly.
How long, Ron, will this gentleman here, how long will he be working for? Is he under contract so long, or?
He has a contract.
We don't have one yet, we're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, we have a contract and John Spurs looked at it and he says it's fine, it's dandy.
So it's 15,000 for this gentleman's contract for the duration. he's
Right.
gonna
Yeah, I
be
think
there, is that
Ron's goal is to get started, because you've got a lot of paper records and kind of a mishmash and no coherent overall strategy about how the records are managed. So the first, what he's asking tonight is funds to
Help you.
digitize and make a database and just have a
Right.
sense of what's there.
Where you at,
But it takes a while. I've been doing this for Boone County for 14 years now.
Yeah.
We're almost done, but we've been working on it for a long time.
Right.
It's not a minor undertaking, but even if you don't like do the whole ball of wax, at least you could get what you have in a coherent fashion that surveyors could make some use of it, instead of every time somebody surveys, they gotta dig through all your records.
And then,
It isn't coherent right now.
and
Did you
so
say he was
what's,
from Benton County? I didn't hear him.
Boone County.
Oh, Boone
Boone
County,
County.
okay.
I worked for the Boone County Surveyor directly as their employee for 10 years, and now for the last 3 years, I've continued the same project, but on a private contract basis.
Oh, I see.
And so we've been at it for a long time, but we're nearing completion. And I think if you ask the Indianapolis survey community, they're pretty darn glad that we're doing that. Of course, we're up against Indy, and it is a lot easier to get a survey started in Boone County now, since we've done all this.
Then
I
the other,
apologize, I wasn't here for the last couple of
Okay.
meetings, but, that's 50,000, how long is that contract for? I mean, can you tell me?
is it,
Oh, you're just talking about like a 1 year.
1 year.
contract.
I see,
You
okay.
can make it open-ended as you may, or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
My contract with Boone County is open-ended, it renews every year. But you're not stuck with me.
yeah, yeah. And then the long-term goal is once we get this done, and we start to where we want to start going out and start digging holes, then we go out and we bid, and Jimsford could bid on it, or Deckard could bid on it, or, Swift or Deckard, or who else am I thinking of?
As a term, yeah.
McClintock could bid on it, Hennessy could bid on it for the actual cornerstone digging. And then, I don't know when Britton's ready to do it or if he's ready to do it, but we're looking at a GPS probe, I guess is what you would call it, that we can actually take it out when they're doing a hole or they're doing a culvert or a sign or whatever, stick that thing in the ground and it talks to like 6 satellites. And all that data comes down and can be downloaded right into our GIS system. And the reason we want to do that, and Jim brought it up, and I'll just pass this around. This is a copy of the Boone County website. So what happens is the surveyors come in, they click on a cornerstone, however you have them organized. And when they open that up, then they get the legal description of what the cornerstone is, which is some of the work that we have in our book. So we just have to.
GPS coordinate too.
All right. And
People
then,
ask me, why can't you do this with GPS? Well, I do. I use GPS all the time, but until you find the best evidence of the corner, they didn't survey with GPS prior to very recently. in the end, we come up with a coordinate, theoretically, you never have to do this again, because GPS coordinates, once established, can be propagated into the future. So we do tell them where it is.
And then this is what they also pull up on that website. It actually shows the hole, the stone, any kind of reference point. That thing will take a picture all the way around. So there's a good reference point. So in the long run, you're saving the taxpayers a ton of money every time they have to do a survey. And we're going to be compliant with the law. And this kind of thing right here doesn't happen. So that's the reason why I'm asking for Jim's help, the money to pay him.
So, when you say get compliant, you have to send this to the state then? I know you said they had to do 5%, they recommend 5% a year of your
Yeah.
total cornerstone, but you say we gotta get compliant with the state.
No, to be honest with you, nobody's overseeing that. There's no.
So we really don't
state
have to do that with the
agency.
state, we just do
So
it
the
local.
federal government laid this system out in the early 1800s, the public land system, they laid it out all the way across the USA. And when the federal government was done, they turned administrative responsibility over to the states. And by the Constitution of the state of Indiana, the Office of the County Surveyor is the inheritor of the system. So in Vermillion County, there's really not there's not a higher state or authority over this. He's the man. County Surveyor of Boone County, he's the boss. So it's not really, and that 5%, nobody's going to prison if you don't do it. So, you know, it is what it is. But it is the state law.
It's the state law.
But
yeah.
there's not penalties I'm aware of.
And I don't know, are there any liabilities if our cornerstone is not right? And a
Well, you
surveyor-
could get into lawsuits. There's
Yeah,
not
I know
particularly
John talked that he's had 5 or 6 litigations he's had to
Yeah,
go
one
through
thing
because
you're
of
trying
this
to
kind of
avoid
thing.
is if you can get a common, the problem when you do a survey, I mean, you gotta start, you gotta have a good reference point. And trust me, it's hard when that's not there. And you gotta spend a bunch of money figuring out the beginning point. It'd be helpful if the county would have done their job and it is, you know, on that primary grid. But in terms of like lawsuits, what you could potentially get into is if different surveyors disagree over the survey, which may well be a disagreeing over the primary reference point, then that's where you're gonna get into potentially more lawsuits. Hopefully, you avoid some of that, you know?
I think a few years ago, I believe I heard at Fairview, there was a controversy like you're talking about. One person surveyed from this side of town, another one over this side of town, and they were off. They didn't agree where that point was at when they got there.
Right.
Yeah, that's
And
the
that's
bane
what-
of surveying.
Right. So I know we got 2 situations like that in Vermillion County right now. I think they're gonna get them resolved. But they gotta go clear back out to the highway and start measuring. I think one of them is 1.5 miles off the highway. And the other one is just like maybe 300 yards, but you still gotta do that.
And I'm sure Ron touched on this, but Vermillion County is particularly interesting from this perspective. The state's supposed to be a nice grid of these 6-mile townships with 36-mile square sections. And just by the way it all happened, you're along Skinny County, right on the western side of the state, you have multiple treaty lines and this interesting correction line. And then on the southern part of the state, the state line, the county, the state line was treated in one way. On the northern part, it's different. So you just have a complicated circumstance that existed from
Forever.
the early 1800s.
So we just wanna
And
get
it's
it
not
straightened
undoable,
out.
it's just, it does require a little extra attention.
Yeah.
So do you think you'll need more additional funds besides this 15,000 and your perpetuation
No.
fund? So this will be expected to be it?
This should be it.
As a lawyer, I support fixing those cornerstones. The roads would be awesome too. That would be great. That's a big problem. Sometimes you don't know county road, how wide it is. And
Well, we just got in that,
But the
this
road
just this
records-
last week,
I mean, like, the
how
width of
far out.
right-of-way probably, I mean, that could, if you know what that's spelled out to be, you
Yes.
can find it, but
Yeah,
if they
finding
never.
the road record is
Yeah.
90% of the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Well, I've got them since the beginning of time.
But as the, and I guess I'm not understanding why you wouldn't take the appropriation out of the Cornerstone Perpetuation Fund, if it's got 120,000 in it.
That's me. I think that's where it should come from.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the reason is because we're afraid when we get out and start digging these holes, if you got $120,000, that's 120 holes. That's it. Then
Well,
you're.
it gets 12,000 a year.
Right.
So if it.
But so I'm saying is, if I take the 12,000 a year and then just a little out of that, I could keep this thing going till we're
Ron, I
all
like-
retired and gone.
In my opinion, Ron, is since it pertains to this cornerstone.
I understand that, I understand that.
I'd like to see it come out of that, and if you get in trouble, then come back to this council for money,
Well,
is what I would like to
yeah,
see.
I thought about that, and then I got to thinking about, well, what's best in the long run? If I can just keep this money moving,
Yeah.
then I won't ever have to come back. This is a one-time expense.
Well, we need to do a budget next year.
Oh,
for the
yeah.
Cornerstone Perpetuation Fund, that's easy to tackle in the,
Okay.
in
Yeah.
the July.
And that's the time to look at that.
Yeah. But if you wanna do an additional right now, unfortunately, it was advertised to come out of county general.
Mm-hmm.
So you could either take it out of county general tonight, or we could re-advertise and take it out of, Cornerstone Perpetuation.
Is this something you're gonna get started like tomorrow? I mean, can I wait till the next
Well,
meeting or something and we
what do you think?
re-advertise it?
Soon, the weather's broke,
Well,
if we need to go out.
Right now, I'm all hustled trying to beat crops in Boone County.
So, yeah, we got
We're kinda
time.
booked until crops get in Boone County.
June?
If you don't mind, I'd like to make a motion, we table this
Okay.
till the next meeting and we get it advertised right and get it out of the perpetuation fund. Then you come back to us if you get in trouble, you need money.
Okay. I'm good.
I have a question about the cornerstones that are $1,000 a hole. Why are they $1,000 a hole?
Well,
I mean, I poured
Jim's
concrete
got
my
into
whole
ones
life.
where they,
So we don't have pictures here, but, and the thing is, in the 1800s, these were mostly marked by physical stones. So you're using, do you mind if I don't have my FC?
that's why I wanted Jim here.
The term cornerstone is used generically as
But
if it's
I'm
like-
just saying $1,000.
Yeah, so
I've
we
poured
park-
concrete my whole life. I know $1,000 goes a long way in concrete.
Yeah, so in Boone County, what we do, you gotta figure out, so the problem is there's a rock. There's a physical rock mark in the corner. And you can say, well, who cares about the rock? Except the courts have been explicit that they care about the rock. That rock is the corner. So if you don't find the rock, you aren't really finding the corner, as the courts would say. And by the time we do enough research to surveying and research to figure out exactly where to dig, because if you're digging in an asphalt road, we dig a 5-foot by 5-foot hole in asphalt in Boone County, and by the time you add the survey costs, the documentation costs, bringing in an excavator, because if you don't do it with an excavator, you aren't going to dig a big enough hole, and you're not going to patch it right, and we're super public safety conscious. I got the sheriff on my side. We aren't causing problems. By the time you do all that, that's where that cost comes in. Our costs in Boone County are $900 to $1,500 on a hole, depending on that circumstance. And I think Montgomery County's pretty much the same.
Is it?
And I'm not getting rich on that cost, I can guarantee you that.
Will you be bidding that work out? Will you be bidding that work out?
Yeah.
Well, when we get to the actual excavating, yes.
You'll probably try to use local people, I assume, local
Yeah,
contractors.
Well, we have to use the licensed surveyor, so you
Right.
got the same
But
bunch.
you need an excavator.
Yeah.
Now, like in Boone County, I've always worked with the same excavator. He's a Boone County guy, and I think there's a huge benefit to consistency. I would recommend once you start, basically whether it's me and whatever excavator or whatever your team is, consistency's important on this.
I think
And you're not just blindly digging, I mean, you're looking for evidence, and we open up a 5-by-5 hole, we'll find a railroad rail on the end, a rebar, an old wood stake, a stone,
I've read some in
there's
there.
a lot of thought that goes into it.
I read some in there where it's truck axles, they use truck axles on some, they use some, I forget, railroad, pieces of railroad rail.
Railroad rails are common in Boone County, but
Yeah.
it's not rocket science, but there are certain governing principles you need to apply every single time, or you're not going to get it right. The expensive part is the darn rocks are hiding they aren't all under the road, some of them are out by posts, and sometimes there aren't rocks, and sometimes maybe just the post is it. But if that rock is under the road and you don't find it, I would argue you didn't really do the job right, and if somebody ever does find it, they'll prove you wrong, and the courts will go with the stone that marks the corner. They've been pretty consistent on that.
Our goal is to stay away from roads as much as we possibly can.
But those section lines went along
So,
roads.
you know,
So
If you
that's
had-
the expense.
if
By
you-
the time you bring in an excavator, you soft cut it, you open it up, that's the cost we get.
If you've had a road that's sometimes roads shift, and
well, just like
you
fence line.
find, let's say we find the cornerstone to where it should be, and you guys find that cornerstone, but the road has moved over time, does it stay where it's at, or does it move back to where it was? Because is it usually courts will say the best evidence of where a road should be is where it is?
Well, the position of the federal code is explicit that where the federal government set those corners is where it is. You do get into mostly, what I've found in Boone County, we've dug hundreds of these now, is the roads follow the section lines just remarkably well. There's times like maybe a ditch caused the road to shift a little, but they follow them really well. We have the kind of thing you're talking about right now, we have a prickly situation with our common line with Hendricks County, and we just figured out that 1 mile of that road was built entirely in Hendricks County, but for a very long time everybody's treated it as if it's on the common line. We haven't resolved exactly what we're going to do about that yet. So there are situations where you need to be, cognizant of not creating troubles, but mostly if you find the original corner, the courts are clear that that's the original corner. But if you don't know, if you don't know when this road's moving, you're probably not going to find the stone.
Well, we've had roads, like at least at work, we've had roads where you read the description of the right-of-way, it's say 16.5 feet from center line or off the section line, except that the road's 15 foot offset somehow, because the guy who did this section and the surveyor who did this section did not meet at the same point. There was a 15-foot error, so they just left it like that. And so when you have errors like that, do you intend to correct errors like that, or just?
You just need a case by case basis. Be aware of what you're doing, and our goal is not to cause issues. But we haven't, honestly, in Boone, over hundreds of corners, we haven't found that much of that kind of thing.
I see them once in a while. You'll see a road with a jog in the road for no apparent reason.
Yeah. Well, that's what we got right now on that Hendricks line. That's why we figured that out. Why is this jog here? One thing on the road records, it is in your, I told Boone County for a long time, maybe you don't want to inventory your road records because you're going to find out the right-of-ways are less than you think they are.
Well, if you don't have
I'd better know.
But now just in the last 18 months, the highway department has digitized all those records, and I worked with them about how you code all that. And their argument is that due to recent Supreme Court decisions, if you're going to take right-of-way, the state of Indiana says you only truly own to the edge of the traveled way.
Unless you have a platted right, if you have a right-of-way established by road record of 60 feet, then you got 60 feet.
Then you got it. But if you don't have that road record,
that's right.
You own to the edge of pavement.
Versus somebody, I can't remember, but you run into this because utilities, I do some utility stuff, they want to go down the side of the road, and the question is how wide's that road right-of-way? And so,
it is in your benefit to find out if you ever whatever right-of-way you did ever own, that's right-of-way you don't have to buy.
That's right.
And we had that, like Indianapolis, if you come north of Indy, and the first Lebanon exit, they redid a bunch of roundabouts, and they spent a whole lot of money purchasing ground that after the county studied the road records, demonstrated that they didn't have to have bought all that. But we didn't have those records documented yet. So you can save a lot of money by knowing what your road records are.
The other good thing we know is that when the Army took the Rise property, they did a really good job of surveying. And when the Rise came back to Vermillion County. They did a really good job of surveying. So there's a whole bunch of cornerstones there that we probably won't need to go dig up.
We'll see.
You know, if the records are good enough, we don't have to dig anything up. That's the main thing.
Okay.
So, but we have to be compliant with that.
And right now, yeah, honestly, the records are just a jumbled bunch of different eras, different people doing different things. There isn't a cohesiveness, and it's certainly not easy for a surveyor to research.
Once you find the stones, do you put a marker or a pot?
I do. We use what we call a Harrison monument. We set a cast iron monument. And our goal is to have that cast iron monument at every corner. So if it's an asphalt road, and even if the stone's just this far down, we'll encase the top of that rock in concrete and set the marker and just make it one unit. But if we're in gravel, we set the markers 6 inches deep to avoid the graders. And if sometimes the stone's only a few inches deep, so in that case we'll just remove the stone. Because our goal is to get the cast iron monument. In most cases, we're able to leave the stone, but we don't treat them as though they're sacred.
Don't have, if the highway department hits with those and tears them out of the ground, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Oh, I've heard so many, this one grader driver's very proud of how many rocks he removed over the years. I'm like, well, thank you for that.
Especially if you don't tell them after you've done it, then they get really mad.
Okay.
Moving on, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this till next month, as long as we agree with that 15,000, and we'll take it, vote on it, look at it next month.
If you look at that spreadsheet, you can kind of see what I was thinking in my mind, so we can kind of hang on to that and use it on down the road. We won't have to come back, because Jim will tell you, he's got some counties they've had to come back to the council and get some pretty substantial money over the
The
years.
county's invested heavily in this.
Yeah.
The county council has spent a lot of money on it.
And so my goal was not to have to come back to you guys and ask for any more money, other than this time.
Well, I have a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Dreer and a second by Mr. Bush to table this to April, and then to take the $15,000 out of the perpetuation fund for now, and then that is assuming that if you ever got in trouble, then you come
So we
back.
can go ahead and sign the contracts and get rocking and rolling when Jim's.
You gotta have appropriation.
Yeah, actually, in terms of the record management, like my time's precious right now till the crops are in and boom.
So we got
because
time?
We just have such a limited opportunity to get off-road. But I do have my future daughter-in-law, she's a chiropractor. She's about the smartest young lady I know. And she's taking a break from that career. Right now she has some time. She's got another part-time job. So my goal is for her to do a lot of that. And so we could get cracking any time with her.
But you want to wait until next month? Okay.
In order to appropriate it, we have to have it advertised.
Okay.
So it would be April the 12th?
12, yeah. Very
So-
good.
So actually, you guys are looking to take it out of his fund and not do an additional tonight. is that
Right,
correct?
and then if
Okay.
it, down the road, it became, like, if documents didn't get recorded enough, then you ran low, then we
Okay.
address it at that
Then we
time.
just budget for it next year.
Yeah.
However much
Yep.
he thinks he needs for next year. you
Okay.
budget.
So you-
Very
Actually,
good,
what
thank
we
you.
could probably do is take that money out of his bridge job and just pay it.
That's there, you already appropriated that.
Thank you all for listening to us.
Okay,
Thank you,
hold on,
Ryan.
I have the motion and the second to take that out of the perpetuation fund next month. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
She said say aye, you waved.
All right, motion's approved. All right, and that is the end of, do we need to do anything else for economic development? We're good on the ordinance that allows everything good?
I think so. I mean,
Resolution.
it says that,
Do we
Lincoln
need to,
buy pencils
do we
and
need
they
to
can hire.
specifically vote on the resolution?
Sorry?
Do we need to pull the vote on that resolution?
Oh, you didn't vote on it? Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you get it, Andy?
Nope.
Alright.
How much you vote on?
Huh?
We didn't vote on
One
it.
page.
So, okay. All right, so we will need a motion to approve the resolution.
Let me read the operative parts of the
Yep,
resolution to you that I did tweak it. It says two things. Until such time as the new executive director is hired, and in the event of any future vacancy in the position of executive director, the first deputy shall temporarily perform those duties normally and customarily performed by the executive director in the day-to-day operations of the office, including, but not limited to, signing of claim warrants, ordering of supplies, authorizing repairs, etc. Paragraph 2, the Berrien County Economic Development Council shall have the authority to select and hire the new economic development director. That's it. That's the, if you pass all the whereases.
Okay. So if everyone is in agreement with that resolution, I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And a second. All right, I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Dreer for the resolution concerning economic development. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, motion is approved. All right, public comment. Is there any additional public comment? All right, pending no comments, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second.
All right.
Aye.
All those
No
in
motion
favor?
for us.
Aye.
Have a good evening. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere.
I don't want to
Sit
do
down.
anything.
Sit down.
I want
Sit down.
All?
No, all of you. Rick, don't go anywhere yet.
For the highway department.